Hello! I made a video a few days ago talking about every different body that Fuji has to offer in every series, every line, and I told you I was gonna make another video speaking about every lens they have to offer, the prime ones, and the ones that I use for my workflow. And this is exactly what this video is all about. I'm gonna be talking to you about every single prime lens starting from the 16 to 18 to 23 to 35 to 50, 56, 60, 80, 90 and 10 to 24, which is a zoom lens. I'll tell you more about it in a moment. So without further ado, let's get started after the intro. So why the hell would you buy a prime lens, meaning a fixed focal length, over a zoom lens? There are a few reasons for that. I personally like the fact to have a specific focal length set, as it forces you, if I could say that, to be more creative. Sure, zoom lenses are convenient when you need to swap between different focal lengths at all times. But hey, I have a secret for you. Prime lenses have a zoom too, and that is called your legs. The reason why I use a 10 to 24mm is because they don't offer a 10mm as a prime lens. They offer a 14mm, that's the widest they have, and I will never need such a shallow depth of field to shoot real estate, for example. There are two types of prime lenses in the lineup, and that is, the first one is the ultra-fast prime lenses, and the reason why is because they open more than the compact prime, which is the other category, and those have a stop of light less usually, but they're more compact and they're, for the most part, weather resistant. Alright, so I did one thing since I have them all here on the table, is that I took the same photo here in the studio, and I will be posting this at the end of the video, so you can see how each different focal length compared to one another. I will be shooting those photos at maximum aperture, so you can also see what type of bokeh you can get with each different lens. That might give you a better idea as to how they perform and how you can use them. Alright, so let's get started. First off, we have the 14mm f2.8. This is a relatively large lens and the widest prime that Fuji has to offer. This is a great lens for wide shots when traveling, for example, or when you do some, some church or outdoor shots. I only tested this lens a few times since I am more of a 10mm wide angle shooter and I don't normally shoot at such wide aperture with such a focal length. Then we have the 16mm f1.2 and f2.8. So the f2.8 version came out after, and it's part of those compact prime lenses. These are both great lenses when you need to shoot wide, but you want to avoid that wide angle look on your photos. It can be very useful when shooting outdoor for landscape, for example. If you don't need the slightly faster autofocus and the weather resistance, I'll personally go with the f1.4 version. Then we have the 18mm f2. This lens is, in my opinion, a very good all-around lens. And I'm glad to see that Fuji will come out with a faster version of this lens, f1.4, later this year. And then we have the legend. I call it the legend because this is one of the lenses that I use for my workflow all the time, is the 23mm f1.4 and f2. These are the 35mm equivalent for a full frame, and it is the focal length that street photographers prefer. This is not too wide and not too narrow, and I use the f2 compact version all the times for weddings on my X-T2. I use it for group shots as well as every time that I need to go wide, but not too tight at the same time, if you see what I mean. I think the f1.4 original version is very good as well, but for my needs, and since I normally shoot groups with an aperture around 2.8 to 5.6, I don't need that extra stop of light and bulk. Alright, then we have the 27mm f2.8. I do not have it here, but you will be happy to know that a new version just came out with the XE4, which is now weather resistant, it has an aperture ring on it, and its improved autofocus is better than the original model from June 2013. It is commonly called a pancake lens for obvious reasons. You put this guy on your camera and you don't even notice that it's there. This is yet another lens that I suggest for street photography, and if you like that candid type of shooting style, this is a lens for you. One interesting fact here is that the human eye has a field of view of about 43mm, and this lens is a 41mm full frame equivalent, making it great to capture life as we see it, if you will. Don't forget to subscribe if you like my content, thanks. Then we have the 35mm f1.4, f2 and f2XC. This is an equivalent to 50mm in a full frame, and it is the lens that is wide enough but that gets close to a portrait lens. A nice in-between, and Fuji knows it since they have made 3 versions of it. An ultra-fast original model, a more compact version in metal, as well as a plastic one for those that want to spend less. I've had this lens for a while, but I sold it since it was too close to my 23mm and I found myself using it very rarely. Then we have the 50 f1, the 50 f2 and the 56 f1.2. I have grouped these 3 lenses together since the 56mm is the exact focal length in full frame equivalent to an 85mm, and that is the prime choice, pun intended, for portraiture. It is a slow focusing lens. I do use the air quotes because I don't find it that slow, but it is my favorite lens of all time. So you can check my other videos about this lens all over my channel. Alright, the 50mm f2 is great as well and very competitive. I do like the hood it has on it. It looks very nostalgic. And lastly, we have the f1 version that came out last year, and it is the fastest lens of the whole lineup at f1. However, you will sacrifice space and weight, being exactly double the size of the 56mm f1.2. Alright, then we have the 60mm and the 80mm f2.8. Those are macro lenses. The 60mm was one of the original lenses released by Fuji, but the focusing speed and overall results were not satisfactory in my opinion. They later released the 80mm f2.8, which is a great lens, and they fixed the bugs that the original lens had. I'm not a big fan of macro, and I personally use an MCX16 macro ring for wedding shots, but the macro enthusiasts out there will love this choice. We then have the 90mm f2. I personally have mixed feelings about this 90mm because it is a fantastic piece of gear and the shots that come out of this are great. I used it for a couple of weddings during reception, so you can get closer to people while keeping a wide aperture, but it is a long and heavy lens compared to, let's say, a 56mm f1.2 or a 50mm f2. Of course, it is double the focal length, but since the bodies of the camera are so small nowadays, I don't really have a problem getting close to people in a wedding. So if you ask me, I wouldn't choose it. But if you don't mind the size and the weight, go for it. The last but not least is the 200mm f2. I don't have it here currently, but this is actually a great lens, which is double the size of the 90. And I don't normally use this for everyday use. This is more for, sports, racing cars, wildlife, and other type of shooting styles where you need to be farther away and keep a wide aperture at f2, which is pretty good for such a lens. Alright, so you can pretty much find every prime focal length that you need, from 14 to 200mm, everything in between, every type of aperture. There is a vast choice to choose from. The Fuji prime lenses are made out of metal for the most part and are very sturdy and well built, and they should last you a lifetime, unless you sell them, like I sometimes do, and I regret later. So if you want to know my lenses of choice, there's the 10-24 f4, the 23 f2, and the 56 f1.2. That covers the range that I need for weddings, landscape, photo shoots, and so on. Okay, so let me know what is your choice of lenses, and for what reason in the comment section below. If you learned anything new, let me know as well. If you have any question about any of these lenses, I'm here to answer your questions. Alright, so keep shooting, keep smiling. I hope to see you again on my channel very soon. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a good day. Bye.